Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to be digging into those intensely fascinating notebook chats from May 28th, 2026. If you've been following along with those conversations, you know we're looking at a concept that literally turns everything we thought we knew about physics completely upside down. It's called fractal pressure cosmology. And man, if you enjoy having your entire perspective shifted, you are in for an absolutely incredible ride today. Now, what's really wild about this framework is that it asks us to just completely forget about Newton's falling apple. Seriously, toss it out. We have to reimagine the very fabric of our reality from scratch. I mean, we've all been taught that massive objects possess this invisible pulling force, right? But what if we've been looking at the equation backward this entire time? What if gravity is something entirely different? That brings us to this brilliant paradigm shift. We're moving away from the standard physics model, a universe of empty space, pulling gravity, and rigid 3D rulers, and stepping into what the sources call liquid logic. We're shifting into a pressurized, hyperdense fluid where gravity actually pushes from the outside in, and it operates across 9.6 dynamic dimensions. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the gravity illusion, the liquid universe, matter as bubbles, the dynamic dimensions, the solid singularity, and finally, wrap up with a new cosmic perspective. Section 1. The gravity illusion. The absolute crucial point to grasp here is that in this model, gravity is a pushing pressure. Instead of mass pulling things toward it, the mass acts like a displacement sink, kind of like a vortex. Imagine you're deep underwater. The pressure is pushing in on you from all sides, right? Well, in this framework, the pressurized fluid of space pushes objects toward areas of lower pressure. So you aren't actually being pulled to the Earth. You are quite literally being pushed down by the weight of the universe's vacuum. Section 2. The liquid universe. So instead of a rigid, empty box, think of the universe as a liquid vault. It's filled with a highly viscous, completely frictionless fluid. What we traditionally call the empty vacuum of space is actually a hyperdense medium. And this medium forces energy to tunnel through it rather than just zipping along in a straight line. The universe isn't empty at all. It is completely, utterly full. Section 3. Matter as bubbles. Now, this beer pour paradox grounds a highly abstract idea just perfectly. Think of a freshly poured beer. It really is a fantastic way to visualize this whole thing. The quantum field, that thick vacuum we just talked about, is the liquid. And the physical matter we interact with? You, me, the stars. That's simply the localized vortices. It's the froth, the foam on top. Matter is just structured bubbles in this giant cosmic liquid. And when we compare standard string theory to these fluid equivalents, a really fascinating translation happens. Standard physics talks about tiny vibrating rubber bands, but in a fluid model, what physicists call a string is actually just the cavitation wake. It's the trail of tiny bubbles left behind by energy spinning like a propeller through a super thick vacuum. It takes all that abstract math and makes it beautifully, intuitively mechanical. Section 4. The dynamic dimensions. Diving into the math from our source notes, we find this unified liquid push equation, and it relies on a multidimensional tensor, which is basically a dynamic set of up to 24 shifting variables that constantly adapt, react, and call each other out. Think of it like a flame changing shape in the wind. The universe isn't some frozen snapshot, it's a living, breathing flow. So depending on velocity and pressure, these variables dynamically shift around, kind of like a cosmic scale balancing fire and water. For example, if you have a really massive object, it increases the viscous drag of the vacuum, which then suppresses other vibrational forces. It's a constant, ongoing balancing act of thermodynamics and fluid pressure, adjusting in real time. And here is where the math gets a really crucial correction. The framework actually requires 9.6 active dimensions instead of a nice whole number like 10. Why? Well, because if you try to use a rigid whole number ruler to measure a curved, flowing universe, you get what the source calls the cracked egg error. That fractional 0.4 gap is literally the seam where the fluid flows out so it can push back in. Section 5. The solid singularity. Let's talk about the singularity. Rather than a black hole being some chaotic, empty pit of nothingness, in this model, it's the highest tier variable. It is a vortex hub formed in a state of absolute geometric perfection. This is represented by the 13-ball geometry, 12 spheres perfectly surrounding one central 13th hub. Now, this is mind-bending, and honestly, It is the absolute focal point of those late May 2026 notebook conversations we're dissecting today. The core theory posited here is that the singularity acts as a solid state point of infinite pressure. The superfluid vacuum compresses inward from those 9.6 dimensions with such absolute, overwhelming intensity that the energy at the center essentially crystallizes. It doesn't break down into nothing. It packs together so tightly with thermodynamic energy that it acts completely solid. So, when that total pressure becomes infinite at the center of the singularity, the liquid universe doesn't just break. Instead, it vents that solid-state energy into another dimensional layer. We perceive it as a black hole, sure, but it's really the liquid flowing into the next nested layer of reality because of that extreme solidifying pressure.
Section 6. A new cosmic perspective.
Because of that fractional 0.4-dimensional gap we mentioned a minute ago, energy doesn't just crush inward indefinitely. It flows in and out simultaneously. This allows the entire liquid universe to literally breathe. It maintains this perfect equilibrium, a beautiful in and out balance, so the liquid shell of the vacuum never collapses on itself.
It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? When you stop seeing the universe as a cold, empty void pulling you down, and you start seeing it as a pressurized, flowing superfluid that pushes you together, how does it change your view of reality to know that every single particle of your body is just a structured, energetic wave, a tiny bubble in an infinite flowing sea? Thanks for exploring this framework with me today.